In this video, we're going to look at some worked examples for electrostatics, and this is going to be in our unit for forces at a distance. As you can see in this image, we have the picture of an atom. Inside the nucleus, we have our protons and our neutrons. Each proton contains the fundamental charge of 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19. Remember, whenever we have this E, this is exponential notation. So this is positive 1.6 times 10 raised to the exponent of negative 19. Now electrons also have that same fundamental charge, but theirs is negative. So we have negative charged electrons, we have positively charged protons, and they have the same value, just one's a positive and one's a negative. We also have this idea of conservation of charge. So for an isolated system, so in an isolated system, the overall charge is going to be conserved. And the reason for this is if our charges are coming from electrons and protons, if we have an isolated system and there's no matter coming in or out of our system, this is saying that all of the protons and electrons that we have in our system are going to remain constant. They're not just going to disappear and they're not going to come from anywhere. So if we have decay, as we could see in this image right here, let's say we have an atom and it breaks off, and as it breaks off, it takes some of the electrons with one of the pieces, it takes some of the protons with another piece, and we started off where we knew that our charge had a total of positive 4, and this E is saying that that's our fundamental charge. So it had an excess of 4 protons more than electrons. Now as it breaks, I could see that this portion right here still contains a charge of positive 4E. However, I could see that one of the pieces actually contains 2 extra electrons on top of the protons that are present. So this is going to have a negative 2 fundamental charge. Now I know based on the conservation of charge, whatever I started with, I'm going to have to end with. So all these pieces have to add up to the total that I started with. So I have positive 4 minus 2 is going to give me positive 2. All of this has to add up to positive 4. So that means that this last one also has to be a positive 2E. So now if I calculate this, I have 4 minus 2 gives me 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. All right, then we could actually calculate what the charge is on an object based on different combinations of the protons and electrons. So I know that the fundamental charge for every single proton or electron is going to be 1.6. And this is going to be times 10 to the negative 19. So raised to the power of negative 19. Now, protons are going to have positive charges. Electrons are going to have negative charges. So on this one, we have a combination of both. So I am going to rewrite this. So I have my fundamental charge for my protons and my electrons. And it says I have 10 protons. So over here, I'm going to put a positive 10. So I have 10 multiplied with this charge. I have 10 of those. So 10 protons, they each contain this charge. And then I am going to have 10 electrons. I'm going to put negative 10 because they have a negative charge and it'll carry that negative into the multiplication. So the product right here is going to have a negative value. When I add those two together, I have a net charge of 0. So 10 protons, 10 electrons gives us a net charge of 0 coulombs. Okay, so then the next one says we have 8 more protons than electrons. If I wanted to see what this value is, I would use my fundamental charge. And I know that these are protons, so they're going to be positive, and there's 8 more protons than electrons. So all of my protons and electrons cancel out until we get these 8. These 8 are going to be my excess charge, and that's what's going to give my object an overall charge. So I'm going to have 8. This gives me a charge of 1.28. I'm going to put this in exponential notation and an exponent of negative 18. Okay, so this one says we have 25 more electrons than protons. So this means that however many protons I have are canceled out by the same amount of electrons, but then we have 25 more electrons on top of that, which is giving us our charge. Because these are electrons, I'm going to put negative, and then the 25 will carry, or the negative will carry into the product, and I can see that the charge is actually going to be negative 4 times 10 to the negative 18, and that would be the charge. And these are coulombs. Okay, so one other way that we can, or a way that we can transfer the charge from one object to another is by rubbing them together. And what happens is we have this thing called the triboelectric series, and this provides a list of different materials where the surface electrons will transfer from objects that are low on the list to objects that are high on the list when we rub them together. So if I'm looking at this list, I could see on the right hand side, this is a sheep. Sheep have wool, so this is where this material is going to land on my triboelectric series. And then the balloon is made out of rubber. This is higher up on my triboelectric series. So if I were to take this balloon and I rub it against the wool, I'm going to have electrons that are going to jump from the wool to the rubber on the balloon. And after I rub these together, I'm going to have a net positive charge on the wool because it lost electrons, and I'm going to have a net negative charge on the balloon because it gained electrons. Now when those electrons go onto the balloon, they're actually going to spread out evenly amongst the surface so they can get as far away from the other excess negative charges as they can. Now we have conductors, and these are materials that let electrons move easily through them. So metals like copper and aluminum are good conductors because their electrons can flow easy, or they can flow freely through the material. The Earth's soil is also a good conductor, which can absorb excess electrons. Now, conductors are basically like open doors that they let electrons pass through the material very easily. And some examples of this are like gold, iron, steel, silver, copper, and seawater. Soil, because it's typically wet, that is also a very good conductor of electrons, so it's able to accept those electrons. Now, insulators are materials that do not let electrons move easily. Some examples of this are rubber, plastic, and glass. These are all insulators because their electrons are tightly held and cannot move around. Now, the electrons cannot travel away, but they can and they will lean in response to charges. So whenever they are in a field with an electric charge, they will actually lean in response to those strong charges. They're not going to leave the orbit of the nucleus, but what will happen is they will end up having a greater orbit on one side as opposed to the other. Now, insulators are like closed doors, keeping the electrons on one side of the barrier. They can move around, but they're going to stay confined to the orbit of the element that they are attached to. Now, if we look at this image at the bottom right here, so if we're looking at this image down here, it says a pipe is an insulator. And this specific pipe is going to have a negative charge. The sphere and the earth are conductors and are neutral. The electrons in the sphere will be repelled by being close to the rod, and that's going to make it so they travel freely into the soil, leaving the sphere with an overall positive charge. And the electrons in the pipe, remember the pipe has this negative charge with excess electrons, and now the sphere itself is going to have an overall positive charge. So what's going to happen is the electrons inside that pipe are going to be attracted to that sphere. So the electrons in the pipe will lean towards the positive sphere. Okay, so if we were to bring conductors in contact with one another, they're going to balance out, essentially. So if I look at this, so it says when two conductors are brought into contact with each other, they will exchange electrons. They will exchange until all of the electrons balance out, until all of the conductors have the same charge. All right, so if I'm looking to start off with all of my conductors, this has 3 of them. I could see that my first conductor is going to have negative 9.6 coulombs. My second conductor is going to have positive 2.4. And then my last conductor is going to have a value of negative 8.16 coulombs. Now, if I add all these together, I am going to have a total charge of negative 15.36 coulombs. And then after they all balance out, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this A. So I get the total charge when I add all these together. I get a value that I'm calling A, and this is negative 15.36 coulombs. And now, after they touch each other, they're all going to exchange electrons until the charges balance out. So I'm going to have that charge split between 3 objects. And this tells me that after they come in contact, each one will have a charge of negative 5.12 coulombs. So after I touch these 3 metallic spheres together, they're going to exchange electrons. After they exchange electrons, they are going to keep exchanging electrons until all the charges balance out. Once they balance out, each one will have negative 5.12 coulombs of charge. Okay, so the last thing we're going to look at is electrostatic forces. When 2 objects have charge, where'd it go? When 2 objects, why does it keep doing that? All right, when 2 objects have a charge and are close to each other, they will pull towards each other if the charges are opposite types, or push away if the charges are the same type. This force acts along the straight line between the 2 charges. The strength of the force depends on how big the charge is, how big the charges are, and how far apart they are. So the further apart, the weaker the force, the stronger the charges, the stronger the force. Notice how the equation is basically the same as the gravitational force. But rather than the mass, we use charge. And there is a different constant where K replaces G. Now K is called, this is Coulomb's constant. We're just going to write constant here. And has a value of 9 times 10 to the 9th. And the units for this are going to be newtons multiplied by meters squared divided by coulombs squared. So when I plug this in, I could see that the meters are going to cancel out with what we have at the bottom. So this is K, Q1, Q2 over R squared. Now if I'm looking at the units up here, I could see that my denominator is going to be canceled out with what I have up here. And I could see that the 2 numerators, what I have up here, is going to be canceled out by that denominator. So I will be left with units of only newtons after I do the math. Okay, so K is Coulomb's constant. Q is going to be the charge. And R is going to be the distance. And if I was looking at 2 charges, let's say that this one is positive and this one is negative, there's going to be a straight line between them where each one is going to be attracted to the other. And the way that we would calculate this force would be by using this equation right here. So KQ1, Q2 over R squared. Now let's take a look at proportional reasoning with this. So if I had some force between these two objects, if I tripled the first charge, it will triple the force. So this is going to give us 3 times the force. I could see, because if this became 3 times bigger, my force in the equation would actually gain by 3. It would become 3 times greater. All right, tripling the second charge will also triple the force. Now increasing the distance to be 6 times greater will actually, so if I'm looking at my equation, I have K, let me put this in black and then I'll plug in my changes. So I have K, Q1, Q2 over R squared. Now let's take a look at the first stuff that we did. So if I plug in a 3 right here, when I pull out that 3, it's going to tell me that it is 3 times what my initial value was. Now if I did that with the second one, once I pull that out, I get 3 times what that value was. Now if I look at my distance, if I make this 6 times greater, when I pull that out, I'm going to have 1 over 6 squared, and this is going to decrease it by 36. So it's going to be 1 over 36, the force. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to show all of the changes that we would do to the final force. So the first charge gave us an increase of 3, so I'm going to multiply that original value by 3. My second one gave me a value of 3, so I'd multiply that one by 3. The last one gives me 1 over 36. So my new charge is going to be 9 over 36. I have the 3 times 3 gives me 9, times 1 gives me 9, and then in my denominator I will just have that 36. Okay, now I want to simplify. So this is going to be 1/4. 9 goes into 36 4 times, so 9 goes into 9 once, 9 goes into 36 4 times. This would be my answer. So my new force based on these changes is it's going to be 1/4 of my original force. And those are some example problems that you're going to see when you are dealing with this unit.